Hey guys, Joshua here with SaltystScales.com. What I want to talk to you about today is how to rig a grouper rig. Now there's no one particular way that's correct. There's many different ways that you can rig a grouper rig, and the variables all depend on the elements, how you're fishing, where you're fishing, and that's how you pretty much determine what type of grouper rig you'll be using. So to start with the very basics, what I'm using today, or what I use for my grouper rigs, right here I have Trilene Big Game 80 pound. I love this particular leader due to the fact that it's really easy to tie. I also have a few weights, leaded weights, that I'm going to be discussing. And I have a circle hook. So these are the main elements that you'll use for most of your grouper rigs. Now, I've seen videos and I've seen people use grouper rigs that have a tremendous amount of hardware. As you probably already know, or if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm a minimalist. I like to try to use as little hardware as possible to make the bait, to present the bait as natural as possible. So my philosophy is, less is more. So let's get to it. You guys already know what I like to use for my grouper reel if you've watched my other videos. Here's a little Saltist. This is the Daiwa Saltist 40, and I've been using this pretty religiously and doing very well. It just got the appropriate amount of gear ratio, and it's also, it's a durable reel. I've upgraded the drag system in it, just put better disc in there, but overall this reel has been flawless. I haven't had any issues, and I have this spooled. This reel is actually built for braid, so I have it spooled with 80 pound test Power Pro, and this is definitely my go-to outfit. So what I like to do when I'm fishing for grouper, if I'm in 12 foot or less of water, then I actually like to free line. That means no weight at all. What I do is I run a top shot. So you're already seeing my 80 pound test Power Pro that I have directly on my spool. What I'll do is I'll run 80 pounds test of top shot, usually about 10 to 15 feet, and I'll tie this, or I'll connect the top shot via a uni knot right to the braid. And then all I do from there is I tie on a hook using the improved Clinch knot. Now you all know how to do that. Well, most of you probably already know. You put it through the eye of the hook. You make 5 to 8 wraps, depending on what you want. Then you bring the tag in through your loop that you created and back through this loop. Just make sure you use saliva. That way it cinches down accordingly. So again, 12 feet of water or less, you want to free line your baits, like pinfish, grunts, jacks. I typically will hook them either on their dorsal fin or near their anal fin. That way they swim downwards, especially if the current is strong. With you pulling against the fish, and the fish actually will want to swim, completely vertical. So he'll swim straight down. So that is the most effective technique for shallow water grouper. Now moving on to our next rig. A lot of people use the sinker dead bait rig, is what some refer to it as. This rig, I don't use it as much as the others that I'm going to speak about today, but all that consists of is the same thing: 80 pound test leader, 6 to 10-aught circle hook, and 3 to 4 feet of leader. Now the size, of course, is preference, so I'll cut off a little piece of leader here. And what you do, let me move this out of the way. All you do is you take your leader and your hook. We already tied this on with the improved clinch knot. You seen that just a moment ago. All you do is trim the tag. So, okay, this is our 7/0 circle hook. Now, like I said, 6 to 10/0, depending on the size of your bait. 3 to 4 feet of 80-pound leader, and then you just tie this weighted here. It's called a. I mean, it's your basic weight, but it has the swivels embedded in the weight. So it's a fixed weight, and that's all you do here is you tie the other half of the leader onto the sinker with the improved clinch knot, same exact way. Alright, so here we have it. Trim your tag. Okay, so now we have the weight, we have the 80-pound leader, and we have your hook. Alright, now all you do is, for demonstration purposes, I already have a snap swivel on here. So you can either, if you have a snap swivel or you like using a snap swivel, you can hook this directly to your other swivel that's mounted directly into the weight. Now your weight that you're going to use is going to be dependent on your current and of course the depth. But typically offshore conditions, you're going to use anywhere from 4 to 8 ounces of lead. And again, that's going to be dependent on the current and the depth that you're fishing. So to attach this to your main line, I personally, in this particular situation, I would remove this snap swivel and I would tie it directly to the swivel that's already attached to the lead. But if you didn't want to do that and you like the quick access of being able to undo this and retie something else on there quickly, then you can use this snap swivel and you would just run it right through here, snap it on. And this is obviously a larger snap swivel. This is what I use for my trolling with my planers. But this is the way the rig would look. And this is called the sinker dead bait rig. And what this does is it prevents the sinker from sliding. Now the only problem that I have with this particular rig is that when the fish grabs the bait and he starts pulling it, he feels the resistance of the lead. So a lot of times I won't use this particular rig, but it is effective and a lot of people use it and a lot of people swear by it. So moving on to the next rig that I personally use is what we call the sliding sinker rig, or also known as the knocker rig. And you're going to use pretty much the same things, same 80-pound test leader, 3 to 4 feet, and your circle hook, and that's going to be 6 up to 10/0 depending on your bait. And now what you're going to use is your basic, your basic sinker, which is you use your egg sinker. And like I said, the size is going to be depending on the depth and the current. But the only difference that you would do or change with this particular rig is you would take your egg sinker, and this is your main line. So you would put your main line through the egg sinker, such as that. And actually, before you did that, you might want to tie a swivel on the other end of your leader. Now I use a 100-pound or 150-pound test swivel. That's going to be more than sufficient for what, grouper purposes. So again, improved clinch knot, trim the tag. Alright, now back to this step. This is the main line. This is your egg sinker. Now you would tie the Power Pro improved clinch knot, and all that consists of is you put the line through. Now instead of just doing your basic clinch knot, you'd actually put it through a second time to prevent slippage. Because if you don't, the Power Pro will pull right off the swivel. So now you would just tie your clinch knot as you normally would. But it's important to do the double wrap. So now that the clinch knot is done, you just tighten that down and you trim the tag. But as you can see, the sinker can move. So what this does is it gives your fish or your bait that natural presentation and allows it to go in and out. And when the fish actually strikes it, then there will be no resistance. So it's less likely that he'll drop the bait due to the resistance that he feels. But this rig here is extremely effective, and what I like about it is you drop the bait down to the bottom, you can reel up the slack, and you pretty much decide how long or how much leeway you want your bait to have. So if you want them to be able to swim freely, 7-8 feet off the bottom, then you can give them a little bit more slack and allow them to do that. But overall, guys, these are the 3 different techniques that you can use to be extremely successful with grouper fishing. I use all of them. I'm very successful with them. The freelining technique is absolutely my favorite way to do it. I mean, if you're able to get the bait down to the grouper, that's where you're going to get your violent strikes. It also gives you that benefit factor because they come up out of the rock pile, so it gives you that extra few feet, so that way you don't actually lose them to the rock piles. But if you have any questions or concerns, just post on the YouTube page or go to saltyscales.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, and I'll see you out on the water.